Here is the conclusion of the story called Little Jack Crosses the First Threshold. Chapter 3. Little Jack resists Tom's negative peer pressure at the park. Later that day, Little Jack gave Will a call. Will agreed to help Little Jack out should he need it. Afterward, Little Jack spent the rest of that evening thinking about Tom as a nice guy who he liked to spend time with. When he sensed any feelings of fear or intimidation or enmity in himself, his warrior side stamped those feelings down. Then patiently, Little Jack would again give himself the pep talk that Tom was a really good guy. Finally, Little Jack felt ready. Monday after school, Little Jack rushed through his homework. Fortunately, he didn't have a lot. After giving himself one last pep talk, Little Jack headed off to the park, where he knew the guys would be playing basketball. As luck would have it, they were just getting ready to take a break. Heart beating a little hard, Little Jack walked up with a big smile on his face. He said, "Hi, everybody! I haven't seen you guys for a while. How have you been?" Will immediately smiled and said, "I've been great. Of course, Tom here beat me at basketball again. I'll catch up one of these days, though, won't I, Tom?" Tom grinned and said, "Oh, I don't know about that." Little Jack said, "Yeah, I know how you feel, Will. Tom usually managed to beat me at basketball, too." Internally, Little Jack thought that giving Tom a compliment might help his cause. Tom couldn't help smiling a little proudly. He bragged, "Yep, I do all right." Then smiling mischievously, Tom said, "Well, guys, I managed to snag another box of cigarettes from the old man. Let's all of us have a smoke." Several of the guys crowded around Tom and grabbed a cigarette. Finally, Tom came to Little Jack. Tom said, "How about it, Little Jack? Ready for a cigarette?" Little Jack's heart skipped a beat. Internally he thought, "I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I can do this. Tom's a friend. He'll understand." Then Little Jack turned to Tom and said, "Tom, I really appreciate you wanting to share those cigarettes with me, but I'm just not interested in smoking. Like I said the other day, this means there'll be all the more for you. By the way, Tom, could you show me how to improve my basketball game when you're done taking your break? The way you do that jump shot is really great. I'd like to learn how to do that if you're willing to share your secret." Little Jack wasn't lying. Tom really did have a good jump shot. Plus, he figured that changing the subject couldn't hurt. Tom stared for a moment. He thought briefly about repeating his offer to take a cigarette. Then he decided against it. Then he thought about whether he wanted to coach Little Jack in basketball. "Well, Little Jack, I might be willing to show you my jump shot. I'll think about it while I'm smoking this cigarette." Little Jack smiled and said, "Thanks, Tom." Then Little Jack went over to stand by Will. In an undertone that only Will could hear, he asked, "How'd I do?" Will nodded. "You did just fine." Then Will called out, "Hey, Tom, would you be willing to show me how to do that jump shot too? Maybe you could even start a class. You could be basketball coach and, of course, star player." Tom laughed and said, "All right, all right. How many of you other guys want to learn how to do that jump shot?" Every hand shot up. Tom looked around and said, "Okay, you've convinced me. Little Jack, I'll show you first since you asked first, then Will, then the rest of you." Tom took his half-smoked cigarette and stomped it out. "Okay, all you guys, go and line up behind Little Jack and then Will. Basketball class has begun." Little Jack was thrilled. Not only did he manage to say no to Tom a second time, but he was going to get a chance to learn how to do a great basketball shot. Tom really did seem to be a good guy, and possibly even an ally. Little Jack's hero's journey was going quite well. Thanks for listening to the story called Little Jack Crosses the First Threshold by Debbie Dunn. Have a happy day.